This is the Atlanta BeltLine, a mega project with one of the most famous headlines in the country, the $4.8 billion walkway. While its title may be misleading, the project's fascinating origin story is overshadowed by intense controversy, leading many to doubt whether the entire vision will ever come to fruition. Today, I'm on the trail at a small point in a massive plan, a connecting loop that will ring one of the East Coast's largest cities. Let's dive in. In the late 90s, a Georgia Tech urban planning graduate student named Ryan Gravel noticed a serious problem with Atlanta. He saw that unchecked urban sprawl was intensifying traffic problems and eroding the number of public parks. In 1999, he presented a bold idea with his master's thesis that proposed reusing underused rail corridors to link neighborhoods with a ring of transit, supported by trails and parks. It wasn't the first time someone imagined new uses for the beltlines around downtown, but it was the first version clear enough to rally broad support. In July of 2005, the mayor formalized the effort by creating the BeltLine Partnership. By November, the city council had adopted the redevelopment plan and the mayor signed it into law. The plan rests on 4 coordinated parts. First, connect 45 neighborhoods with roughly 22 miles of multi-use trail, one continuous loop that links places with very different histories and incomes. Second, add around 1,300 acres of new and expanded parks to improve livability and quality of life, giving green spaces for relaxation and outdoor activities. Third, create or preserve 5,600 affordable homes in the direct BeltLine area. Fourth, implement a multi-segment light rail system around the corridor in stages, starting with either the east or south. The city believed that all of this would spur at least $10 billion of private investment alongside it. Little did they know that some of these goals, even by 2025, would not materialize. At a high level, the bet was that the private development unlocked by better connections would outweigh the public cost of building the system. As of 2025, much of the work is underway, and we'll get into that in a minute, but first, the controversy. The project in total is set to cost $4.8 billion. It can be tough to wrap your head around such a large sum, and it feels especially surprising when the project is marketed around a trail. But don't be misled. The near $5 billion price tag is driven mostly by a $3.5 billion light rail build. Either way, where is all this money coming from? Much of it is sourced from something called a Tax Allocation District, or TAD. The city formed a TAD in 2005 to capture incremental property tax growth inside the project area. To help you understand this better, look at this map of Atlanta. Inside this irregularly shaped ribbon, as properties go up in value over time, the extra taxes above that baseline don't go to the general pot. They're set aside to fund the BeltLine. That extra is called the tax increment. The city can also borrow against that future growth to build sooner, then pay the loan back with that increment. Say a property paid $2,000 in taxes the year the district started, and years later it pays $3,000. The original $2,000 keeps going where it always went. The extra $1,000, the increment, helps fund the BeltLine. In 2008, a Georgia Supreme Court ruling temporarily blocked the inclusion of school tax increments in TADs, throwing a wrench into the BeltLine's financing. A later constitutional amendment restored that authority, but the delay pushed timelines and strained relationships, especially with Atlanta public schools. There are few better examples of gentrification than here at the BeltLine. Property values near the corridor rose faster than in comparable areas, a pattern researchers flagged early, and that translates into higher rents and tax bills for nearby households. At the same time, the project's initial goal of catalyzing roughly $10 billion in private development has already been achieved, with new apartments, rehabs, and storefronts that were non-existent before the trail. The city notices what's going on, and is at least sort of attempting to prevent it. Inclusionary zoning around the BeltLine requires a share of new rentals to be income restricted, 10% at 60% of the area median income, or 15% at 80%. So some new buildings open with below market units. The housing program reports progress toward its 5,600 home goal, with about 74% reached, including 569 units added in 2024. On top of this, a separate program pays tax increases for longtime homeowners through 2030. The net effect is mixed, clear amenity gains and investment, alongside real displacement pressure that requires policy to keep up with the market. Now let's talk about public transit, and this is probably the most intriguing part of the whole thing. From day one, the BeltLine was pitched as both trail and rail. The rail element is a side-by-side at-grade streetcar running in the corridor, a concept baked into MARTA's earlier environmental work in typical cross-sections. The starter project, the streetcar east extension from downtown to Irwin Street and up to Ponce, moved into final design with a published budget of $230 million, funded by the more MARTA half-penny sales tax, with construction slated to start in 2025 and service in 2028. But then in March of 2025, the mayor's office said not East Side First, prioritized the South Side instead. That pivot landed after years of study and public messaging around the East Side and paused the project. On top of this, there's a confidence problem. The existing downtown streetcar has struggled with low ridership, and MARTA's own 2024 analysis shows the system near the bottom of peer streetcars, context that makes some residents doubt ridership projections for a larger loop. Meanwhile, trail users and nearby businesses worry about fitting 2 tracks, stations, and power systems next to already busy paths. In August of 2025, BeltLine leaders floated the $3.5 billion light rail program for the full corridor, including $270 million for 42 vehicles and $210 million for support facilities, with promised headways around 10 minutes. However, as of today, there's no real funding plan and long-term operating budget, which obviously fuels skepticism. Groups like BeltLine Rail Now argue the plan is mature enough to start building and that more studies won't change the fundamentals. Atlanta's Community Land Trust is doing good work, but it's outgunned by the scale and speed of change along the corridor. Recent land trust updates show around 50 homes in trust, with roughly 100 to 140 more in development, which is real progress but modest next to demand and rising land prices that make every deal slower and more expensive. The trust relies heavily on philanthropy and one-off assemblages, which limits throughput even as the BeltLine area heats up. Now let's talk similar projects to the BeltLine, and 2 of the most similar are probably New York's High Line and Chicago's 606. At a basic level, all 3 start from the same move. Take leftover rail infrastructure and turn it into a continuous public corridor to create a linear space people actually use with walking and biking. They stitch together neighborhoods that streets and highways once separated. Because they're long and connected, not just single parks, they change everyday travel patterns in short trips. They also trigger the same set of second-order effects and decisions. Property values near the corridor tend to rise, so cities end up debating displacement and affordability. Both the High Line and the 606 got crowded and valuable faster than planners expected. The takeaway for the BeltLine is to front-load capacity and housing protections, not to chase them later. Build the trail to Saturday volumes on day 1, and lock affordability tools in place before a segment goes live. As of late 2025, the trail build-out is deep into delivery. Roughly 85% of the loop is open or under construction, with the west side adding a new 1.3-mile segment in June that created almost 7 miles of uninterrupted path. The south side is under construction but facing delays, with most sections still slated to pour by mid-2026. On the northeast, the 2.2-mile package to Lindbergh is federally funded and advancing, while the Yanoda Park expansion on the west side broke ground in April, with completion targeted in early 2026. In the end, the BeltLine is a simple wager with hard execution. Finish a continuous loop that people use every day, keep longtime residents close to it, and prove the rail case with a first segment that actually works. By 2030, the BeltLine could be the backbone of how the city grows inward fairly and efficiently. At Buildcore, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects and topics across this great country. And with your help, the channel has grown to over 50,000 subscribers and reached over 10 million people. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.